Israel-Hamas truce deal extends by 2 more days. Morawiecki sworn in as Poland Prime Minister. Good afternoon, you're watching World Today with me, SAHIH. A truce between Israel and Hamas in Gaza that was on the verge of expiring was extended by 2 days, raising the prospect the Palestinian group will free hostages beyond the 69 released since Friday. The truce will prolong a pause in the 7-week war between Israel and the Hamas. Each day since the 4-day truce began on Friday, Hamas has released some of the hostages, while Israel has freed some of the Palestinians it holds. Israel previously said it would extend the truce by 1 day for every 10 more hostages released, providing some respite to Palestinians in the Mediterranean seaside strip from the war, which has killed thousands and laid waste to the enclave. On Monday, the Israeli military said 11 Israeli hostages were freed by Hamas under the terms of the original truce that was due to end on Monday. Qatar said the newly released hostages, all dual citizens, included 3 with French nationality, 2 with German nationality and 6 Argentine citizens. Hamas said earlier it had received a list of 33 Palestinians to be released from Israeli jails in return, including 3 female prisoners and 30 minors. With the latest releases, Hamas has freed a total of 69 people since Friday, including both Israelis and non-Israelis. Under the terms of existing 4-day truce agreement, Hamas was due to release in total 50 Israeli women and children held hostage in Gaza. There was no limit in the deal on the number of foreigners it could release. Prior to the latest releases, an Israeli spokesperson said the total number of hostages still held in Gaza on Monday was 184, including 14 foreigners and 80 Israelis with dual nationality. Wide areas of Gaza have been flattened by Israeli incessant airstrikes and artillery bombardments, causing humanitarian crisis as supplies of food, fuel, drinking water and medicine run out. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said at the weekend that once the truce ended, they will resume their military campaign in the besieged territory. The truce agreement also allowed for 8 trucks to enter Gaza. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres described the extension of the truce as a glimpse of hope and humanity, but said 2 days was not enough time to meet Gaza's aid needs.
Say it's a glimpse of hope and humanity in the middle of the darkness of war. And I strongly hope that this will enable us to increase even more the humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza that is suffering so much, knowing that even with that additional amount of time, it will be impossible to satisfy all the dramatic needs of the population in Gaza.
Palestinians in Gaza had earlier said they were praying for an extension of the truce. Some were visiting home reduced to rubble by weeks of intensive Israeli bombardment, while others queued for flour and other essential aid being delivered by the United Nations Relief Agency, UNRWA. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland warned Monday of increasing threats from domestic violent extremists amid growing attacks against minority groups, as he vowed a full investigation into the shooting of 3 men of Palestinian descent. Police said a man had been arrested in connection with the wounding of the 3 university students of Palestinian descent in Burlington, Vermont, as authorities probe what they believe was a hate-motivated crime. Burlington Police Chief John Murat said the suspect, 48-year-old Jason Eaton, was expected to appear before a judge later today.
Mr. Eaton has now been arraigned and charged with triple attempted murder, charges that carry the potential for life sentences. This case remains the top priority of the Burlington Police Department. The investigation will continue, as will our collaboration with state and federal partners, to give our prosecutors the strongest case possible and to ensure that Mr. Eaton is held fully accountable for his actions.
Garland said the Department of Justice was closely monitoring the impact that the Israel-Hamas war may have in inspiring foreign terrorist organizations, homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremists, both in the United States and abroad. Poland's ruling Conservatives, led by Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, was sworn in after he proposed the formation of a minority government to President Andrzej Duda yesterday. The right-wing Law and Justice (PIS) party emerged first after the 15 October general election, but without a clear majority and with little chance to forge a coalition with other partners. The parliament, controlled by ex-Premier Donald Tusk's pro-EU alliance, now has 2 weeks to vote on the PIS minority government. If the lineup fails to get the green light from parliament, it will be the turn of the pro-EU Liberals led by Tusk to form a government. Opposition leader Donald Tusk's Liberal Civic Coalition bloc finished second, but together with two minor parties, the centrist Third Way and the Left, secured a majority of 248 lawmakers in the 460-seat parliament. President Andrzej Duda, who is allied with the Conservative, had tasked the PIS with a first attempt at forming the new government. The cabinet presented Monday features a few well-known names, including Mariusz Blaszczak, staying on as defence minister. Half of the cabinet members would be women. The PIS is widely expected to lose that vote as it only has 194 seats in parliament, and observers have noted the lack of viable coalition partners. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said Monday the West has no alternative but to keep backing Ukraine's fight against Russia in the face of doubts over US support to Kiev.
It very often happens in wars that when people realize that this may last for a long time, of course, that is demanding, that is difficult. On the other hand, we don't have any alternative. The alternative to let President Putin win is a tragedy for the Ukrainians. It's dangerous for us, and it will have a high price in the long term for all of us.
Speaking in an interview at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Stoltenberg said despite the difficulties, lack of progress or achievements or territorial gains, NATO needs to continue support Ukraine. The United States has provided over $40 billion in security aid to Ukraine since Russia's invasion and pledged to back Kiev for as long as it takes. But opposition from hardline Republicans has thrown into question the future of US assistance. The United Nations ambassadors of the United States and North Korea sparred at the Security Council yesterday over Pyongyang's first spy satellite launch and the reasons for growing tensions in a rare, direct public exchange between the adversaries. After a nearly 6-year absence, North Korea again started sending its UN envoy to Security Council meetings on its nuclear and ballistic missile programs in July. The 15-member body met on Monday over the 21st November spy satellite launch.
So we reject strongly the disingenuous DPRK claim that its missile launches are merely defensive in nature in response to our bilateral and trilateral military exercises.
One belligerent party, the United States, is threatening us with a nuclear weapon. It is a legitimate right for the DPRK as another belligerent party to develop, test, manufacture, and possess weapon systems equivalent to those that the United States have already possessed and or developing right now.
North Korea has been under UN sanctions for its ballistic missile and nuclear program since 2006. This includes a ban on the development of ballistic missiles. Coming up, Malaysia and Monaco committed to strengthen economic ties. Stay tuned.
Rakyat Malaysia memang hebat kerana tegas pertahankan hak Palestin. Memang kita jauh dari dunia Arab. Kita jauh dari dunia Palestin. Kita jauh dari Gaza. Tetapi setiap detik berlaku menyentuh hati nurani kita. Kerana apa? Karena kita tahu dan faham arti manusiawi, arti ihsan, arti
Malaysia is committed to work with Monaco in fostering a robust partnership towards a sustainable economic growth for both Malaysia and the Principality. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said it is important for Malaysia and Monaco to continue to engage each other at all levels, particularly in expanding business prospects. Speaking at the Monaco Economic Forum 2023, Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul also reaffirmed Malaysia's stance as a pro-business, pro-investor and pro-trade nation. At the same time, he said Malaysia and Monaco also need to mitigate the global geopolitical dynamics and tap into the good bilateral ties nurtured under the dynamic leadership of both countries. The forum was organised by the Consulate of the Principality of Monaco, Kuala Lumpur, in conjunction with His Serene Highness Prince Albert II first state visit to Malaysia from 26 to 29 November. The visit underscores the importance of this diplomatic step and is an indication of the optimism for the further growth of the two countries' relationship. Meanwhile, the same event, Yacht Club de Monaco and the Royal Selangor Yacht Club solidified their bonds of friendship and collaboration by signing a memorandum of understanding with a view to the Royal Selangor Yacht Club obtaining the Label Class Destination certification. Rescuers on Monday brought in red miners to drill through a narrow pipe and help pull out 41 construction workers trapped in a tunnel in the Indian Himalayas for more than 2 weeks after high-powered machines failed. The men, low-wage worker from India's poorer states, have been stuck in the 4.5-kilometre tunnel in Uttarakhand state since it collapsed on 12 November. The National Disaster Management Authority's Syed Atta Hasnain warned the Met Office had said there would be rain in the area in the next day or two, but added he did not think it would affect the operation to get the miners out. Thunderstorms, hail and lower temperatures with a minimum of 9 degrees Celsius are forecast in the mountains. The trapped men have been getting food, water, light, oxygen and medicines through a pipe, but efforts to dig a tunnel have run into a series of snags with machines. Attempts to drill a tunnel horizontally through the debris trapping the men have been plagued by damage to machinery, and rescuers began drilling by hand after clearing away the broken equipment inside the narrow evacuation pipe. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva named Justice Minister Flávio Dino, a top figure in his administration, on Monday to serve as a justice on Brazil's Supreme Court. He confirmed to the 11-member court by the Senate, Dino, a 55-year-old ex-federal judge and governor, will replace retired Justice Rosa Weber, who stepped down in September. Dino leaves the key justice ministry post at a time when Brazil is hit by a wave of violence linked to organised crime, notably in Rio de Janeiro and the northeastern state of Bahia, an issue he was tasked with tackling. Winning the needed Senate majority is typically a formality in Brazil, though Dino could hit resistance from allies of far-right ex-president Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's camp resent his leading role in the administration's response to the riots that rocked Brasilia on 8th January, when thousands of the former president's supporters invaded the presidential palace, Congress and Supreme Court buildings. More than 1,000 were arrested, with the first defendant sentenced to a heavy 17-year prison term in September. The nomination comes amid heightened tensions between the branches of government after the Senate passed a bill last week curbing the powers of individual Supreme Court judges. Lula also named prosecutor Paulo Gonet, 62, to head the Prosecutor General's office. Gonet, currently a prosecutor for electoral crimes, was involved in a case that led to Bolsonaro being barred in June from running for office for 8 years for his unproven attacks on the credibility of Brazil's election system. Perus President rejected a formal complaint against her filed on Monday by the Attorney General, deriding it as despicable in brief public remarks in the latest recriminations over deadly social unrest a year ago. Earlier yesterday, the Attorney General, Patricia Benavides, announced the complaint following a nearly year-long inquiry in a televised speech. Benavides also rejected the investigations against her. Several anti-corruption prosecutors within the Attorney General's office also called for the resignation of Benavides. The Attorney General's office first announced in January it was launching a probe into Boluarte and members of her cabinet on charges of genocide, qualified homicide and serious injuries. The AG office noted that if Congress accepts the complaint, it could lead to Boluarte's removal from office. The ouster of former President Pedro Castillo plunged the Andean country into weeks of angry and sometimes violent protests that claim at least 40 lives, hundreds more suffered injuries. Growing numbers of asylum-seeking migrants have in recent weeks been crossing the once quiet border from Russia into Finland in freezing temperatures, a move Helsinki has labelled a hybrid attack. Cloaked in heavy winter coats, many have been arriving on bicycles, attempting to bypass a ban on crossing the border on foot as Finland barred entry by bicycle last week.
Prime Minister, dear Patrick, thank you so much.
In early October, the Finnish border guard raised the alarm about a shift in Moscow's policy, saying Russia was allowing an increasing number of migrants without proper papers to reach the border. Since August, around 700 asylum seekers have entered Finland without a visa over its 1,300-kilometer border with Russia. This prompted Finland over the past week to close all but its northernmost border crossing with Russia in the Murmansk region. Finnish officials claim Russia is attempting to destabilize its Nordic neighbor. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova denied Russia was acting deliberately. Almost 2 million people in Russia and Ukraine were left without power on Monday after hurricane, force winds, snowfall and heavy rain cut electricity lines and caused widespread flooding. Videos from the social media showed huge waves crashing over beachside areas of Russia's Black Sea coast as wind speed reached over 140 kilometers per hour in some places. In Ukraine, severe snowstorms left over 1,000 towns and villages in the dark, while 4 people were reported to have died in Russia and Crimea due to the adverse weather. 2 bodies were found in Russia's southern Krasnodar region, while state media said a sailor was killed in the Kerch Strait between Crimea and Russia. Russia's energy ministry said about 1.9 million people were affected by power cuts in the southern regions of Dagestan, Krasnodar and Rostov, as well as the occupied Ukrainian territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia and Crimea. Parts of Crimea coastal highway linking the cities of Yevpatoria and Simferopol were closed due to flooding, and ferry services from Crimea's largest city of Sevastopol were suspended. Weather forecasts show downpours are expected to continue in the evening in the Crimean port of Sevastopol and Sochi on Russia's Black Sea coast. The floodwaters in the southwestern Somali district of Dolo may have started to recede for now, but distraught families have lost their homes, their livelihoods, and the muddy deluge are now at risk of potentially fatal disease. Somalia's government has declared a state of emergency over what the United Nations has called once-in-a-century flooding, with almost 100 lives lost across the country and 700,000 people made homeless. Torrential rains linked to the El Nino weather phenomenon have lashed the Horn of Africa on the heels of the worst drought in 40 years that drove millions to the brink of famine in Somalia. It is considered one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, locked in a vicious cycle of drought and floods. But Somalia is particularly ill-equipped to cope with the crisis as it battles deep poverty and a deadly Islamist insurgency. In one of the worst El Nino episodes in late 1997 and early 1998, at least 1,800 people died in Somalia alone when the Juba River burst its banks. The latest floods have washed away homes, schools, farmland, roads and bridges, leaving many without shelter, food or clean drinking water. Rossi is scheduled to return to track next year. More on that in our sports segment.
76 minit tanpa henti. 76 minutes non-stop. transparent and concise.
Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam.
Malaysia tonight, 8:30 p.m.
Barcelona have another chance to secure qualification for the knockout rounds of the Champions League when they host Porto tomorrow morning. Its head coach, Xavi Hernandez, has called for patience ahead of their clash with Porto. The Catalans look to be easing towards a last 16 place after winning their opening 3 games, but defeat away to Shakhtar Donetsk in their previous match leaves progress still in doubt, having failed to emerge from the group stage in the last 2 seasons. Barca also failed to win their most recent La Liga game, drawing 1-1 at Rayo Vallecano on Saturday, which saw them slip to 4th in the table, 4 points behind leaders Real Madrid.
Creer que el juego va a volver y que los resultados vendrán. Es cuestión de paciencia y cuestión de hacerlo ya, mañana. Mañana tenemos la oportunidad de clasificarnos para octavos de final de la Champions. Pues la mentalidad no puede fallar. Es una final para nosotros mañana. Por lo tanto, a seguir trabajando, no hay otra.
Barcelona lead Group H, level on 9 points with Porto, while Shakhtar Donetsk are 3 points behind and they face bottom club Antwerp on Wednesday. Paris SaintGermain will approach their Champions League game at home to Newcastle United like a final. PSG find themselves in a delicately poised Group F, where all 4 sides can still progress and will hope to make use of home advantage in Paris. The team lost 4-1 when they played Newcastle in October, and after the Premier League side's 4-1 win over Chelsea on Saturday, Luis Enrique is preparing for another tough challenge.
Entramos en una competición que es muy corta, muy pocos partidos a lo largo del año, en un grupo especialmente complicado y con una clasificación muy reñida, y entramos en la fase de partidos decisivos. El de mañana puede ser decisivo. De hecho, mañana podrían clasificarse ya 2 equipos si se produce una serie de resultados. Yo creo que hasta la última jornada va a haber posibilidad de clasificarse y, bueno, estoy plenamente convencido que mi equipo está preparado para competir.
Just 3 points separate group leaders Borussia Dortmund from bottom club Newcastle, but PSG can secure progress if they defeat the English side and AC Milan fail to win against Dortmund. Meanwhile, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola would not be drawn into conversation about extending his contract at the club beyond his current deal, which runs until the end of the 2024-2025 season. Speaking on the eve of their Champions League Group G clash at home to RB Leipzig, Guardiola said that he could not answer the question, before adding that 18 months in football was a lot of time.
Well, yeah, of course. You can leave tomorrow. So 1 year and a half is a lot of time in football. So I arrived here with a long hair. Look what happened now. So it's 8 years ago. Look at that with a guy, huh? I'm funny. 8 years, so.
Taking over in 2016, Guardiola has guided the club to 5 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups and last season's Champions League, which capped off an historic treble-winning 2022-2023 campaign. Retired Italian MotoGP legend Valentino Rossi, who has switched from 2 wheels to 4, will compete in the FIA World Endurance Championship WEC next season. The 7-time MotoGP World Champion will race with the Belgian WRT team, driving one of 18 cars entered in the LMGT3 class, which replaces the LMGTE AM category. Rossi, 44, is notably expected to take part in the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans Endurance Classic on 15 to 16 June, having got a taste by winning a support race at the iconic Sarre circuit in Western France this year behind the wheel of a BMW for the WRT team. The Belgian outfit, co-founded by former racing driver Vincent Vos, will participate in the hypercar class in 2024 with two BMW M Hybrid V8S and in LM GT3 with a second M4 GT3. The identity of his two teammates for 2024 is not yet known. Meanwhile, Poland's Robert Kubica is on the list of participants in the Premier Hypercar class. The former Formula One driver, crowned 2023 World Endurance Champion in the lower LMP2 category, will be at the wheel of a private Ferrari. German driver Mick Schumacher, son of Formula One legend Michael Schumacher, will make his endurance debut in his Premier category with Alpine. In total, 14 manufacturers will participate in the championship, including 9 in hypercar, a record in the history of WEC.
Siren amaran awal banjir ialah sistem pengesan kenaikan aras air secara automatik. Sistem ini dilengkapi dengan pembesar suara akustik, sistem pemantauan bersepadu dan menggunakan sistem solar sepenuhnya. Selain itu, ia juga berupaya memberi arahan daripada Pusat Kawalan Program Ramalan dan Amaran Banjir Negara ke stesen siren dengan kaedah voice activation. Keupayaan bunyi siren ini boleh menjangkaui 1 hingga 2 kilometer bergantung kepada keadaan topografi setempat. Terdapat 2 jenis siren. Pertama, bunyi siren amaran.
Amaran. Air sungai telah melebihi aras amaran.
Semboyannya kedengaran apabila air sungai melepasi aras amaran dan penduduk diminta bersiap sedia untuk berpindah. Kedua, bunyi siren bahaya.
Bahaya. Air sungai telah melebihi aras bahaya.
Ia diaktifkan setelah air sungai melepasi aras bahaya dan penduduk diminta untuk berpindah serta-merta. Sistem siren amaran awal banjir memberi manfaat kepada masyarakat bersiap siaga menghadapi bencana banjir.
Sabah dan Sarawak memang diberikan perhatian kerana kita ketinggalan dalam melaksanakan perjanjian Malaysia 1963. Maka tahun depan peruntukan persekutuan untuk pembangunan Sarawak meningkat kepada 5.8 bilion ringgit. Manakala untuk Sabah meningkat kepada 6.6 bilion ringgit. Kerajaan juga telah menurunkan kuasa pelaksanaan projek pembangunan di bawah 50 juta ringgit kepada agensi teknikal. Kita telah meningkatkan pemberian khas interim untuk Sarawak dan Sabah 300 juta ringgit ketimbang 16 juta ringgit bagi Sarawak yang diputuskan yang tidak dikaji semula sejak 1969.
And with that, we reached the end of today's bulletin. In our top story this afternoon, Israel and Hamass truce deal extended by 2 days. Do join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM for more news. Till then, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm SAHIH. Goodbye for now.